Okay. All right, I'm a little later than usual, but we're gonna probably start this few minutes late. Huh? Oh crap. No. Hola. Hello, hello. Doing well, doing well. I'm trying to figure out where to put my face cam so it doesn't. Okay, here we go. Let me do this. Sorry, give me one quick second. There we go. That's better. I'm gonna move the alert box here. Yep, that's good. I'm gonna move chat here too. Thank you. Very low budget costume. I was like, what costume could I get for under 50 bucks? All right. Sorry, we're gonna start maybe like 3 minutes late. Thank you, thank you. Sorry, just some technical difficulties. Today we're gonna be doing some actual coding and actual project building today. So, oh yeah, turn up the sound, but yes, good call, thank you. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure out my screen sharing stuff. Let me go ahead and actually test that really quick. That looks weird. That's okay, I can figure it out. I think the Notion board. Oh yes, we actually have some new commands in Twitch now. If you type in, well, actually I'll maybe like give 1-2 more minutes for people to get in, but we now have some Twitch commands that you can just use to grab links easily, including Notion. So I'll get into that in a quick second. Yes, there's a Discord. If you type in, oh, there we go. Yeah, someone already figured it out. You could use / Discord, and then they'll give you the link. The costume is Aki from Chainsaw Man. It's an anime / manga. I haven't read the manga, so please no spoilers. I'm only watching the anime. All right, let me give a few more minutes for people to get in. We'll start at 4:35 EST, so 2 more minutes. You can also get the slides too. The fox thing. I think is that just like this thing? I don't know exactly what that is. I think that's what the fox thing is. Okay, so 2 more minutes. And you can also use !slides, I think. Or is it? Yes, !slides to get the slides as well. Turn up the sound. Yes. Let me turn it up a little bit. How's that? Testing, testing. Do you have any AWS certs? Sorry. No, it's okay. No, I do not. I do not have any AWS certs. I think a long time ago I studied to get it, but to be honest, thankfully the current state of web development does not require you to know AWS as well. So we have Vercel now for that, which is great, which is a pretty great company. So no, I do not have any AWS certs. Is there something we should download or have open? Not yet. We're going to be talking about the tooling and stuff and what you need to download today. So you don't actually need anything right now. We're going to actually get all that set up together today. All right, we have 1 more minute and then we're going to go ahead and kick it off. How's the sound now? I turned it up a little bit on my mic. Cool. All right, cool. Cool. Just let me know if there are any more issues with the sound and stuff, and get on that. All right. All right. It's 4:35. Let's go ahead and get this kicked off. Thank you. All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, let's get it kicked off. So I don't know if everyone here was at the first session. If you weren't at the first session, we do have the recording up on Twitch and YouTube now. I didn't realize that Twitch only gives you 1080p recordings if you are an affiliate. So I need to grind out that affiliate status. So the quality on Twitch is going to be better for now, but I think they disappear after 7 days or something. But this time I am saving a local recording that should be higher quality, so apologies for that. I'm going to go ahead and get it started. First, just a little change log, kind of things that we updated since the last stream on Tuesday. So mainly we have commands, Moobot commands on Twitch. Thanks to our friend Josh for the idea there. So you can use exclamation mark commands if you just want to see a list of all the commands. Exclamation mark slides, which will give you the link to this slideshow or whatever active slideshow we're going through that day. Exclamation mark Discord, Notion. If we ever do a live poll, like there's a command for that. Finally, there's also exclamation mark feedback, which is for the post-session feedback form. Yes, this looks like some people are testing those out. Looks like that's working well. We'll probably keep on updating these as we go, but for now, I think this should cover the bases there. I also reduced the size of my face cam. We got thanks for the feedback there about kind of the face cam being in the way, and also like the alert box and kind of chat being in the way of the slides. I failed to consider that last time, so hopefully now it's a little bit less distracting. So we're also, like I said, we're working on improving the quality of the recordings. I need to get that Twitch affiliate status, which I have hit most of the requirements. The one I haven't is the unique days. Like I need to do 7 unique days in a 30-day time window, which we'll get there, but I'm impatient and I kind of want it sooner. So one way for me to kind of grind that out faster and maybe kind of test to see if this would be helpful, I'm going to be hosting a really short office hours session tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. So this office hours session, of course, you're welcome to ask anything that related to what we've covered so far in the class, or if you're a little further ahead in your journey, or maybe you're like interested in talking about the industry, startups, AI, anything kind of like related to that. It's kind of going to be a free for all session where you just kind of come in and we can chat about it. So that's tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. There should be an event scheduled in the Discord if you do need a reminder there. But yeah, that should be all the major changes from last time. Cool. So I guess before we dive into the tools, just to consider that maybe not everyone was here last time. First, like always, we like to start from the very high level, the big picture, right? It's just easiest for us to kind of start from big picture and go from there. Before we get into talking about the tool links, let's do a really quick review of a little bit what we covered last time. So if you weren't here last time, we talked about the kind of the logistics of the course, and we also walked through this big diagram of like the tech industry as a whole. And then we zoomed in on this is what the average tech company might look like. What we're really focusing on is in product. Product is usually made up of 3 main components: product design, product management, software engineering. And we're learning software engineering. Within software engineering, there's many different parts. What we're focusing on in particular is web development. So there's front end and back end web development. I'll see someone in the chat. Oh, I don't know if we can high five if you shake your mouse. It's not working. But yeah, so we're looking at front-end web development here, back-end web development, and within front-end web development, there are 3 main components, at least of modern front-end web development. These 3 components are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And today we're really going to be diving in on HTML and CSS, as well as talking about the tools that web developers use. So hopefully that gives you an idea of just a quick recap of last time and just a bird's eye view of kind of why we're starting with HTML and CSS. I think another thing to note is that in terms of relative importance for web development, I would say JavaScript is the most challenging part of learning web development. And it's also the most important thing to know. CSS is also important to know, but it's not as important as knowing like JavaScript really well. And then least important to know is actually HTML. And a lot of this is because HTML is not as difficult as CSS and JavaScript. So naturally, you'll just get better at HTML just by going through it. And I think one of the takeaways from today is you don't need to become an expert in HTML and CSS today, right? Today, we're actually going to be covering both, which might seem like a lot, right? There's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of things in HTML and CSS that might be weird, but just trust me here, you don't need to be an expert in HTML and CSS by today, right? What I'm trying to convince you of is as we go through the course, you'll naturally just pick up a lot more HTML and CSS. Our goal today is just to understand the basics so we can dive in and just start building things as quickly as possible. Cool. So that's like the high level overview. I'm going to hop back into the slides here. Cool. So let's talk about tooling first. There's only really 5 major tools you need to know here. So this is the web browser, which you already have on your computer. Dev tools, code editors, Google, like the search engine Google, and GitHub. So we're going to talk about all 5 of these here. So last time we did some interactive polls. Today we only have 1 poll. I just realized I forgot to submit the link, but if you use !poll, you should be able to get the link there. Let's do a quick check of what browser are you currently using. So this poll should be live. Let me go ahead and present it. Cool. So go ahead and let's do we'll do a shorter timer this time. We do have a lot to go through again. I'm gonna do let's do like a 1-minute timer, or like 1 minute 30 seconds. So feel free to just hop into that Slido link, and yeah, feel free to answer that poll. All right, yep, lots of Chrome users. All right, we have, let's see, like 50 seconds left. Yeah, we got some Brave users. I wasn't expecting as many Brave users and Arc users here. We'll feel free to drop links here as you go. Opera. Oh yeah, Opera. Yeah, man, I forgot about Opera. But yeah, Opera is still pretty popular, I'm pretty sure, because it's hard to navigate all the things. Yes, that's a really good point. Dropping links as we go. Yes, I will. I'm trying to think the easiest way for me to hop back and forth. Yeah, Edge is actually pretty popular, surprisingly. I will also, yeah, let me just, well, this is the only poll we're doing today, so I don't, and the timer's almost up. But yes, that's a good point of dropping links as we go. I'll try to do a better job of that. Cool, but let's go ahead and end the timer now. Of course, you feel free to continue answering it, but I think the main takeaway here is that, unsurprisingly, most people are on Chrome. Chrome has a very, very large percentage of the market share for web browsers. We do have some Firefox users, Safari, Brave, Arc, Edge, and then it looked like in the chat that some people were using like Opera and some other browsers like that. Cool. So the point is, we're all on web browsers here, or we already have our own web browser set up, which is great. And I'm going to go ahead and hop back to the slides. So, as you know, we're all pretty familiar with web browsers, I presume. But for web development, not all web browsers are created equal. If you don't have a web browser already, I would just recommend Chrome and Firefox. They were the 2 most popular, and they're fairly standard that people use. There's the fancy browsers, as I'll call them. So Brave is one. Brave is like a privacy and speed centered like version of Chrome. We have Arc. This is the browser that I'm using. It's waitlist only, so you won't be able to download it immediately, but it is very nice for creative types. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to not recommend some browsers here, and there's a very specific reason why I'm not recommending these. So Safari, unfortunately, is on the not recommended list. You're definitely welcome to use Safari still. Like this is kind of just opinion. But the reason why I put Safari on the not recommended list is that I don't think Safari has a built-in dev tools, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Like and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I checked, there's no like built-in developer tools in the Safari browser, which is fine. You can still use it for web development, but dev tools are a pretty core part of our toolbox as a web developer, and it's just easier if we use a browser that has that built in. And IE, well, I mean, I recommend, like Edge is fine. Edge has their own dev tools. IE, I don't know if anybody here is still using IE, but it's kind of outdated. I mean, Microsoft themselves, they're kind of like sunsetting IE, and a lot of the websites that we're going to build might look kind of funky on Internet Explorer. So that's the only reason why it's not on the recommended list there. Cool. So that's it for web browsers. So we talked a little bit about developer tools last time, and I'm bringing it up again because, yeah, they're one of the most important tools you use as a web developer. They're only supported in Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. So Brave and Arc have them too, because those are Chromium-based browsers. There's two ways of opening DevTools. So you could right-click anywhere on a web page and click in the Inspect button. That's one way of opening it. The way I would recommend is to get used to the keyboard shortcut. So you're gonna have to look it up if you're not using Chrome or Firefox, because I only know the shortcuts for those. But I believe on Chrome and Firefox, if you want a fast way to open up the browser DevTools, for Mac, you can use Command-Option-I. And I think for Windows, you can use Control-Shift-I. We talked a little bit about this last time, but I'm on a Mac. I don't own a Windows computer at the moment. So unfortunately, I'm not able to 100% verify that this has actually worked. This is just what I've after like a couple seconds of research, I was able to find that Control-Shift-I is the keyboard shortcut. But someone on Windows, if I'm wrong here, please let me know. I don't want to spread misinformation about Windows, because I know we have a lot of Windows users here. And when you open up the browser DevTools for the first time, which we'll get to in a second, there's going to be a lot going on, right? It's almost too much. And all you need to focus on for now is the tab that's open by default, and it should be called the Inspect tab. We're going to talk about the others later. They're going to be really important, especially as we get deeper into JavaScript. But for now, you can just ignore pretty much everything besides the Inspect tab. Okay, it's cool. I see that Control-Shift-I works on Linux too. Okay, nice. That's good to know that this is not completely off the mark. So thanks y'all for verifying. So another thing about the DevTools is that DevTools allows you to kind of like interact with a web page directly. You can like change the text, change the colors. You can basically edit anything about the HTML or the CSS of a website. But all these changes are temporary, right? And they will disappear if you refresh or leave the page. So let's go and kind of demo this now. So I like to do this demo called, I guess, changing the news. Originally, my idea was to pull up my PayPal account and change my PayPal balance to be like $9 billion. But then I realized that's probably, I might be sharing like some personal information there, especially since this is going to be recorded and putting on the internet. So, grab your favorite news website. I like New York Times just because it has a very straightforward layout, which is good for the example. And yeah, feel free to follow along here. So I'm going to open up, NewYorkTimes.com or any news website, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to show how we are going to use the DevTools here. So this is the New York Times. Let's say, I'm tired of all the world events, and I want to change the news. Once again, these changes are temporary, right? We're not hacking the New York Times. All the changes that I make here, no one else is going to see, and they're not permanent, right? If you refresh the page, they're gonna disappear. So I am not committing a crime, just so that's out there. It's just fun to kind of like use this as a demo. So I'm gonna go ahead and right click. So one other thing about DevTools is that wherever you right click on a page and you click inspect, the DevTools will automatically highlight that area of the page. So here's what I mean. So let's say I want to change this headline right here about Putin. So I'm gonna right click this and I'm gonna click inspect. I guess on the screen share you can't actually see my right click menu, but just, I guess, trust me in the sense of I am right clicking it and there's a long list of options, and towards the bottom of that list you should see something that says inspect. So I'm gonna click that inspect. Cool, so it's gonna open up this weird looking thing here. Just once again, everyone's is gonna look different. Yours might not be on the right side, yours might be on the left side. And yeah, there might be a lot of other things going on here. But the main thing I want you to zoom in on is this this structure right here that starts with this exclamation mark doc type HTML and some syntax that looks like this, right? So this is the HTML of this web page. And I seem to have lost the section here. But if you want to like change a particular part, so you could right click it and click inspect, or if you already have the DevTools open, you can click this button right here. Wait, I just realized you can't see my mouse on the screen. Can you see my mouse on the screen? No. Uh-oh. Okay, well, that's something I should probably fix. Oops. So basically on this on the Elements tab, sorry, I think I called it Inspect tab. Two buttons on the left of the Elements tab, you should see this mouse arrow button. Yeah, I apologize for the mouse tracking. I thought that would be included here, but I guess not. There's this like little there's a mouse symbol in a box. It's to the left of the, I guess, the iPad and iPhone devices. Click this button. If you see now it's blue. It's kind of small. Maybe make this a little bigger. Okay, I made it a little bigger. Hopefully that's. Can you guys see that? Maybe it's not super clear, but basically it just turned from. It's the part that's changing color, right? Click this part, and if you click anywhere on the website, so as you can see, like after I click it, wherever I hover, it starts to like jump around the HTML. Right, because basically showing like this is the HTML code that is making up this part of the web page. So let's say I want to change this headline. I'll just click that button, highlight this, click it, and as you can see, it takes me directly to where that is in the DevTools. So you can see that this text, so Putin rails against Western elites, it's the exact same as what is on the screen. So now to actually like change this, you can just double click on the text here and change it to whatever you want. So I'm gonna say like, I don't know, I have coffee in front of me, so that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up. You can just say anything you want, like coffee prices drop to $0 or something. That'd be nice. Cool, so as you can see, I typed it in, I clicked enter, and then on the left here, you can see that what I've typed, it changed on the website itself. Yes, and you can definitely change the images, you can change the links, you can basically change anything in the website. So actually that's a good transition. Let's change this image, right? We have this image here. Let's say we want it to represent this headline, right? Because it's still, I guess a soldier. It doesn't really match our headline, right? So let's change the image. So once again, we're going to click this, what's this button called? This selector button. It's the thing that's turning blue. Click that, click the image, and once again, you can see it's jumped to where that is. It's kind of hard to see here. You might have to scroll a little bit here, but hopefully you guys can see that. And as you can see here, we have this image, IMG, right? We'll get more into the tags in a second. You don't need to worry about the syntax so much, but just what I want you to zoom in on is the SRC here. That's short for source. The source of the image is the link to the image itself, right? So if I were to open this image in a new tab, it would be this image, basically, just by itself. So to change the image, all we need to do is replace the source with our own image. So I'm gonna go to, I guess, Unsplash, just an easy way to grab a photo. And I'm gonna grab a picture of a coffee, right? I'm just gonna type in coffee and Unsplash. And you can use any image, right? It doesn't have to be Unsplash. I'm just doing this for convenience. So I'm just gonna grab a photo here. It doesn't matter which one. I'm gonna click it. I'm just gonna right click this and do copy image address. Once again, you cannot see my right click menu. I apologize for that, but just trust that I am right clicking and clicking the, what's it called? Copy image address button. So I copied the image address and I'm gonna go back to the New York Times here. I'm gonna double click the source. So as you can see, yeah, now I can edit it. I'm gonna delete everything in it. I'm gonna paste in my new link, click enter, oops. Whoopsies. Oh, I accidentally clicked away, which I didn't mean to do that. Let me try that again. Oh wait, this is a different element. This is the A class. Sorry, let me go back there. There we go. So yeah, change the source. I'm gonna remove this. Oh, Unsplash. Oh, okay. So it looks like this image. I think it's because it's on a carousel. It's not letting me change it as easily. Let me see if I can find like a different image to change. This doesn't always work. Some websites have like funky JavaScript going on, but for simple websites, this usually does work. If you just change the source, it should change. Let me try this image right here. Let's see if we get a different result. If it doesn't, then the New York Times might have some like code on here that is preventing this from happening super easily. So let me double click this source, delete everything in it, put in our new source, click enter. Oops, where did it go? Darn, it didn't work. As you can see, like we changed it and it looks like it's still showing the old source for some reason. I'm sure we could probably get to the bottom of it and figure out why the image isn't changing, but yeah, sometimes this will happen. Changing the image source will work for most websites, but for some websites that have like JavaScript behind it, it's not gonna work as easily. Bummer. That's okay. I mean, we could do other things, right? If we wanted to just delete this image, like if we wanted to get rid of whole sections of the page, we can just click the element and click backspace on the keyboard. And as you can see, it's gone. We just deleted that image. So let's say we want to delete this like whole section of this page. Like we want to delete this, this headline right here. We can just select it. And then let's say we want to like delete the whole div. So divs kind of represent like whole sections of the page. Let's say we want to delete this headline and this little text under it. I'm gonna click this div, make sure we highlight it, click backspace, and then boom, it's gone. So once again, we're not hacking the New York Times, right? If I refresh the page, so remember like we've changed this headline, but if I refresh it, so I just refresh the page and it's gone back to what it originally was. Right, so the changes are temporary on our own machine. They are not permanent. But you might have seen like a lot of people can use this to scam others, right? You can change your bank account and make it look like you're super rich. So anytime you see like a screenshot of anything on a website, know that because you can just change things on the DevTools, there's a chance it could be doctored, right? Okay, so what else should we do here? I guess one other thing we'll do here before we move on is maybe we can change some CSS. So everything in here is HTML, right? This kind of syntax of this like carets, greater than, equal than symbol, like this is how we know we're in like an HTML document. But if we wanted to change something else, like the color of the background, anything that has to do with the styling of a web page, so basically how it looks, so like color, typography, layout, stuff like that, that is the role of CSS. And to do that, what we can do is we can right click on, maybe let's say we want to change this background color from white to, I don't know, green or something. We can right click this, click inspect. Once again, you cannot see my, my cursors, but I'm right clicking on it, clicking inspect. And let me make this a little bigger. What you'll see down here is a styles tab, or at least I think you all should see a styles tab. But basically what you want to look for is the styles tab. So the styles tab is going to be under the HTML section. So top is HTML, bottom is CSS. And CSS, it looks pretty funky, right? You're going to see weird weird words like this 8x, dx, don't worry about that too much. What I want us to zoom in on are these areas where we can see the check mark. So these are CSS properties that we can change. So basically what I want to do here is, let's say I want to change the background. I'm going to go ahead and like look, as you can see, if I hover on different sections of the HTML, I get different parts of the app selected, right? So if I hover on this part, I get the whole web page. So it's probably that I want to click on this, scroll down, and I can see that, yeah, here we go. We can see like a background color, right? Or a color. Maybe let's just change the text color. So color, it's kind of confusing because color could be anything, right? In CSS, if it's just the word color, that's how we know it's the text color. So maybe instead of changing the background color, just for convenience, let's change the text color. So one other cool thing in DevTools is that it has a color picker built in. So you click on this little box here, and once again, you can't see my mouse, but if you click on the black box here next to this like 333, I'm going to highlight the 333, and you see on the left here is like the black box. Click on that box, or just any color box, and then you should see this thing pop up. This is the built-in color picker. And this color picker is pretty cool. Not only can we use the eyedropper to grab specific colors from the web page. So let's say I want to change the text color to be the exact same color as maybe like this soldier's uniform, right? Or maybe actually that's not a good example because it's like a pattern. Let's say I want to change it to be this blue right here on this house. You can't really see it, but in the image of the house, there's like some blue. So I'm going to go ahead and click this eyedropper, drag it over to the blue. Does anybody know how to get the mouse to show up on these streams? I need to figure it out. I'm going to click that blue, and as you can see, the color has changed to the blue. Well, the text color hasn't changed, but it looks like it will allow you to kind of easily select colors like that. But once again, it looks like this is not a simple example because this is a web page with a lot of things going on. And they probably have some other rules that are preventing this from being applied everywhere. Maybe as a simpler example, instead of changing all the text color, let's just select one element and change it. Sorry for the confusion here, but yeah, sometimes like changing things on the website, if it's a really complex website, like there's a lot of things going on, there's oftentimes rules and code in place that's preventing these simple changes from working. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab that same text, and then we scroll down to say, let's see, Okay, so if you basically, click on this text, and you can see here we have the color again. Looks a little different. It says like var, whatever. Don't worry about that. What we're gonna do is click this box. Oops, sorry, misclicked. Click that box. And as you can see, as I'm dragging this around, you can see the text color changing, right? It's like, you all see that? It's like kind of pinkish, it's kind of red now. It live updates as I drag the color picker. So if I wanted this text to be red and scary, I could just set it like that, and I click away and boom, oops. It changes back because I guess there's like a hover, right? When you hover on this link, it changes back to black. But if I leave it, it's changed to the different color. Okay, so don't worry about the actual CSS rules and the syntax that much. I think the main thing I want us to get away from here is that, in the DevTools, you can edit the HTML, you can edit the CSS. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned, as we saw here in the demo. But as we start to work on our more simple websites, it'll be a little bit more clear, like the changes we're making. Cool. So that's DevTools, and we're gonna do this on our own time as well. But just wanted to kind of get that really quick demo out of the way. Okay, let's move on to talking about code editors. So this is a pretty debated matter in programming. If any of y'all watch tech TikToks or go on tech Twitter or YouTube or any kind of forum or discussion board related to coding, you will find people are pretty ride and die for their editors, and they will sometimes call you stupid if you don't use Vim or stuff like that. It does not matter which one you use. All those arguments are kind of dumb. It's just a tool, right? They're all the same. basically. And some people might be extremely opinionated that one editor is better than another, but at the end of the day, these are just text editors, right? It's like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, right? They do the same thing, so it doesn't matter which one you use. But for beginners, I am opinionated that for beginners, I think Visual Studio Code is probably one of the best ones you can use for web developer, mainly because it's free, it's really fast, it's open source. So this means that the source code for the editor itself is available, which you might ask, why do you care about that? Well, it just basically means that it's the community has control over it, essentially. The community can make changes to it if they want. And open source is just part of a larger thing in software engineering that we'll talk about more later. But basically, this is a good thing, is what I want you to get out of it. It is actively maintained. For those that don't know, VS Code or Visual Studio Code is made by Microsoft. So, big tech company. But for us, because it's made by a big tech company and it's open source, this means that we know that it's going to be actively maintained, which is good, right? We like to use tools that are actively maintained, because when a tool is not actively maintained and basically, let's say Microsoft decided to stop working on it, well, that is usually a sign to switch off, right? Because it's not going to be continuously updated and improved on. And I think another real big pull of Visual Studio Code is that there are tons of extensions and plugins, right? You can have an animated background on your VS Code. If y'all are in the Discord, you can see that my Discord status is actually connected to VS Code. So you can see what file I'm working on if you click on my name in Discord. Well, not right now because it says I'm streaming, but most of the time you can see what I'm working on. So it connects to Discord, which is fun. You can change the fonts, you can add color themes, you can even have a pet in VS Code. It's just lots of fun things, fun extensions that people have made. It's definitely the most popular one. And there's even a web version of VS Code, which is something that a lot of people don't know. If you go to vscode.dev, so I'm going to click on this link here. This is in my browser, but it's like the same thing as Visual Studio Code on my computer. I can open a folder. I could code in here. I can basically do everything I can do in on my desktop VS Code. But it's let's say I'm not on my computer, I'm on a different machine, I can just use the web version, which is nice. But yeah, a lot of people don't know about the web version. They don't talk about it a lot, but I think it's actually a pretty cool feature of VS Code. So yeah, that's Visual Studio Code. That's my personal recommendation. Once again, back to the spoiler, it does not matter which one you use. If you're already using Sublime, JetBrains, Vim, NeoVim, Xcode, any of those, it does not matter. At the end of the day, it's just a tool. You just want to use the one that you're comfortable with, you're familiar with. But if you're just starting out and you're looking for one just to use, can't go wrong with Visual Studio Code. Okay, cool. Hopefully that all makes sense. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to mention with editors here, but I guess while y'all are here, if you don't have an editor yet, go ahead and maybe start to download now, because we're going to need it for the second half of this session. So you can go to, actually, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. I think if you just type in, it's code.visualstudio.com. I'm going to go ahead and the web page should look like this. It's going to say Mac here because I'm on a Mac, but if you're on Windows, it should automatically detect that you're on Windows. Go ahead and go to this website and click this download button. And yeah, it should be fairly quick installation, but do let me know if it takes a long time. Let me go to my, where am I? Where's my stream? All right, sorry, I'm gonna do the infinite mirror really quick. Okay, cool, I just dropped that link in the chat, so feel free to download it. If you're maybe on a slower internet connection, or you're not on your own computer, maybe it's parental lock or administrative privileges are needed, don't worry about that. You can still follow along. Maybe you could just use the web version for now, or maybe rewatch the recording when you are on your own computer. Which one should we download, Stable or Insiders? That's a really good question. Honestly, it doesn't really matter, but just for simplicity, Stable is what I usually go with when I'm downloading any kind of software. Insiders or any of the nightly builds, that's just fancy talk for if you're a dev that actually wants to build on VS Code itself, like you want to actually extend the editor itself, then maybe you would use those other versions. But for us, we're just using the tool, so we can just use stable. So it doesn't matter if I use VS Code, my teammate uses another editor. No, it does not at all. Yeah, you can. It doesn't matter if your teammates are all using a different editor and you're using VS Code. Yeah, basically as long as you're coding in the same language, working the same project, it really doesn't matter. I guess a small caveat of that is for mobile development. I don't think VS Code is the best tool for that, right? If you're building iPhone apps, you should probably use Xcode. But once again, we're not talking about mobile development here. This is just for general web development. Visual Studio Code is perfectly fine. We will probably talk about Vim and Emacs a little bit later, but once again, it's not necessary. Just I guess so everyone knows, I do use Vim, but I use Vim in VS Code. So it's like I'm using both. It's kind of weird. Don't worry about it too much. But if you do see me do Vim stuff that's in my editor, that's why. Okay, cool. Hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully everyone is able to download it. Do let me know if you're having any issues, and maybe we can debug it during the Q&A. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Oops. Okay, so while we're on the topic of editors, this is not technically one of the key tools I want us to pick up, but I do want to say something really quick about REPLs and sandboxes, because this might be a word you've encountered when you're learning to code. People will talk about sites like Replit, CodePen, Code Sandbox. Basically, what you need to know are that these are micro environments for coding, right? It's like someone basically took a code editor and the browser and put this in this little sandbox online that you can play around with, right? So if y'all have ever done Code Academy, Free Code Camp, done Replit or anything like that, you've already kind of come into contact with REPLs or sandboxes. They allow you to build websites and apps all in your web browser without having to download anything. So this is really nice for beginners, right? Because setting up your environment as a programmer is honestly way more complex than it should be sometimes. And REPLs and sandboxes basically kind of take out the complexity of downloading stuff, setting up an environment, and they just give you a ready-to-go place for you to just write code and just see results. So they're great for beginners or spinning up quick mini projects. But the one con about REPLs and sandboxes is it's just not the same as a quote-unquote real coding environment, right? They do simplify a lot of things for you, which is good. But I would argue when you're first starting out, you should still know how to, set up a real coding environment on your own computer. As you progress, I welcome you guys to use REPLs and sandboxes. But in the beginning, I think one of the reasons why we're doing this live lecture is one of the advantages is so we can kind of walk through a real coding environment and set it up like how a real developer would. But if you do, want to mess around with projects and you don't want to deal with the setup, ones I highly recommend are CodePen. So CodePen is just great for regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm going to drop a link to that actually really quick. I think that's CodePen.io. So that's a good one to check out. Code Sandbox is a good one as you get deeper into web development, as we do more JavaScript, React, advanced stuff. Code Sandbox is great. And I'll just show you CodePen really quick, just what that looks like. So if I go to the CodePen website, it's going to show all these examples of little websites that people have built. So these are basically projects, right? Someone made a wood saw all in CSS. So people, it's a good place for people to show off their CSS skills, their HTML skills. Obviously, we're not going to be building anything as crazy as this, but just to demonstrate what it looks like if we were to create a new project. I just clicked on that pen button here. And as you can see, we have this little mini editor, right? Where we have those three components of front end, right? HTML, CSS, and JS all in one place. So, if I just type in some basic HTML code, hello world, as you can see, instantly shows up here, right? This is the output. This is the preview of my code. So, without having to download anything, it's just a really easy way to, like start writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But I just want to say for beginners, I would avoid using REPLs until you have kind of built some projects on your own computer, because it does take away a lot of like the parts of a real coding environment, if that makes sense. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slides there, but just wanted to make a quick note on sandboxes and REPLs. Hopefully that all makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about Google. So will this be recorded, available to watch tonight? Yes, the recording should be available immediately on Twitch after. YouTube, it usually takes me like 24 to 36 hours to get it up, just because, I don't know, Google, or I'm not too used to YouTube, so editing it and stuff takes me a little longer, but it should be available on Twitch immediately after. Okay, cool. So let's talk about Google. So some people might think it's weird that I put Google here as a tool, but it really is a tool. You might have seen jokes from developers or like on developer forums about like how all developers do is like Google things and copy things from Stack Overflow. I'm here to tell you that that is pretty much true. A lot of what we do as coders is Googling problems that we run into, and Google is really one of your best friends as a developer. So learning how to Google well is honestly one of the most valuable skills you can pick up, not just for programming, but just kind of for life, right? If you're good at like figuring out problems and you're able to find the information very quickly, this is something that will reward you a lot as you continue to build that skill. And also, one other thing about coding, I think is maybe a common misconception, is like the hardest part of coding is not really creating things from scratch. It's actually getting unstuck when things go wrong, right? Let's say you're writing some code, it's all going well. Maybe you're like following a tutorial, and maybe your project has an error, right? Or it's like, or the output is not showing up. Then what do you do, right? Like that's pretty much one of the most common things you'll run into as a developer. And where Google lends a hand is being able to basically diagnose these problems and Google your way out of it to fixing them. That is an extremely important skill, right? So for programmers, we call this skill debugging, right? Basically getting rid of bugs, getting rid of errors, right? Debugging. And Google is really an essential component to this. So what I want to, Google is something that we're gonna build up the skill of Googling just as we go along. But just in order to kind of get started building up the skill set, whenever you do get stuck or have a question, it's just good to build a habit of Googling it first, right? As a first reaction. You basically want to train your brain and just be like, oh, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. You start just typing things into Google to try to figure out, how to get help and how to figure your way out the issue. I linked an article here for advanced Google tactics. I'm not going to click on it today because we actually are close on time, and I'm actually might have to go into Q&A time a little bit because the rest of the demo is, it might not be finishable in 10 minutes. But do check out this article in the slides if you do want to see some advanced Google tactics. Okay, let's talk really quick about GitHub. So GitHub is basically a hosting service for software development. Right, it's like a place where developers share their code, upload their code. If you're working with a team or a company, they'll probably use GitHub or GitLab, which is an alternative. Basically, every serious software shop today uses GitHub or GitLab, one of those two. And what you need to know about GitHub is it revolves around something called source control, a source control system called Git. Hence the word, GitHub. Git is a little bit more intermediate or advanced. So I'm not going to talk too much about Git. We'll get there eventually. Because you do need to know Git if you plan to work with other developers or get hired. Because, Git is an important tool for collaborating with other developers, right? But once again, we're going to talk more about that later. We're not focused on Git today. We're just talking about GitHub. So we'll be using GitHub to store our code. We'll even use it to deploy basic websites, etc. And it's great because it's free. Other things to know is that each project you make in GitHub, they're not called projects in GitHub, they're called repositories. or repo for short. So if you see those words, that's basically like a project. And they even have their own, like GitHub allows you to publish websites for free using their service called GitHub Pages. So if you do want to read more about it, I did add a link here, or you just Google GitHub Pages, and that should be the first thing that comes up. Basically allows you to create your own basic websites. They'll give you like this free domain at your GitHub username.github.io. But I believe you can change this to a custom domain, right? If you own your own domain, you wanna swap this out. I think it lets you do that for free, maybe. But yeah, it's a very easy way to publish websites. And if we have time, I think we'll actually demonstrate that today. Okay, so with all that out of the way, we do have, let's say, 10 minutes left for the main component of the class. But like I said, we might have to go dip a little bit into QA time. But I do want to get through all of this today because this is kind of like the main takeaway from today's session. So today we're going to build and publish our first website, and we're going to try to do that as quickly as possible. And we're not going to build this from scratch. This is something I was debating for a long time because I know a lot of like teachers, start by building from scratch. In my experience, I actually feel like we'll learn faster if we start with a template and change it and edit the template. One, because the template will give us an example of like what good HTML, CSS code looks like. And it's just easier to start from a template than building it from scratch. We will definitely be building things from scratch in this class, but just since this is our very first website, I like to show everyone this website called HTML5 Up. You can Google HTML5 Up, or you can just go to html5up.net. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. But I want you to go to this website, so I'm going to click this, open that link. Let me drop this in the chat really quick. And one thing about questions, for those that weren't here last time, there are a lot of questions in the chat that I missed. Don't worry, I didn't forget you. I'm gonna go through and kind of walk through the questions at the end of the session. So just a heads up there. Okay, cool. So I just dropped that link in the chat. Go ahead and go to HTML5 Up. It should look something like this. And basically, you're going to see this huge list of templates, right? You can see what the website looks like. You can even see a live demo if you want to see like what it looks like for real. Oh yeah, it even lets you see like, what does this look like on mobile? Oops. Yeah, it looks pretty nice, right? And these are nice looking websites. So that's kind of why I like to use these as an example. There's so many, right? There's so many templates. And for the homework, one thing is y'all are going to be doing the same thing that we're doing right now, where y'all are going to be downloading your own template, loading it up on your computer, all that. So I'll let y'all have the choice of what template to download. Just choose something that looks nice. I'm just going to choose a random one here. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to choose, I'm going to choose Fractal. Why not? So go ahead and just click free download on the template you want. It is free. You don't have to pay. You don't even have to subscribe to their email, which is nice. But yeah, so once you click that, the download should start. Everyone's browser is different. But once you have it downloaded, it's going to be downloaded as a zip file. And you basically want to unzip that file first. So go ahead and you can click the unzip file to unzip it. And this is where the demo is going to have to switch to my local computer. I haven't figured out how to share my own screen. I feel like a boomer here, but I haven't figured out how to share my own screen on Twitch. So I'm just going to share my browser. Let's see, and my editor. Let me fix this up. And this is This is like a very common looking setup where we have what's going on? Where we have the editor on the right, so you can see my Visual Code Studio on the right. I'm going to hide my face cam here. I'm just going to put myself in the corner. And I'm going to put my browser on the left. So maybe, let me make this a little better. Okay. All right, how's that? Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to make my editor a little bigger. So when you open Visual Studio Code, you should see something like this. My Visual Studio Code is going to look different from yours. I have some funky settings going on. Like, for example, my sidebar is on the right side instead of the left. I believe once you download VS Code for the first time, yours is actually on the left. Don't worry about that. This is just like personal preference. I'll teach you all how to like customize this stuff later if you do want to. So we might have some differences in our setup, but just generally, I just want you to see that If you do have the space on your computer or your monitor, it's very convenient to have the browser on the left, or I mean, it does the monitor on the left or right, but basically you want browser and your editor side by side. If you have a smaller screen, or this is just not like convenient, you don't have to do that, right? You can have them separate, but this just allows me to see, like, once I make changes in my editor, I can quickly see what they look like in the browser. Okay, cool. So this is what VS Code should kind of look like when you open it for the first time. And I'm gonna go ahead and click open, and open that folder I just downloaded. So I'm gonna go to my downloads. I don't think you can see my downloads or anything like that, but just trust that I am opening that folder. So basically, yeah, just click the folder you wanna open. So aka the one we just downloaded, not the zip, right? We wanna unzip it and then open the folder. And then once you click open, you should see something like this. Do you trust the authors in this folder? Sure, yes, I trust the authors. You can just say yes. Okay, cool. So as you can see, not much has changed in this main section, but what we do see is that we have this Explorer. Once again, y'all's, if you just downloaded VS Code for the first time, y'all's are gonna be on the left. Mine is just on the right for some reason. So don't worry if that's like confusing. But as you can see, we have like these folder symbols, and we have some files here, right? So this is one of the core parts of the editor, which is the Explorer section, right? This just shows the whole folder. It's a kind of equivalent to like Finder, I guess. It's like a way to view, it's like a file explorer, right? It's an easy way for us to view our files and folders. So what I want us to do first is I want us to click the index.html file. So index.html, it's not always going to be named something like this, but I think for all the HTML5 up templates, it is going to look like this. Oh, sorry, my chat box disappeared. 1 second. There we go. How do I move this to the front? Oh, I'll figure it out later. So basically, once we open up the index.html file, index.html file is usually like the root of a website. And by root, we just mean like this is the main page, right? If I were to publish this website at, I don't know, fractal.com, which I do not own, but just pretend I own it. If you went to fractal.com and just like clicked enter, the website you would see is generally the same one that's titled index.html. Right? Index is just encoding. That's just what we use to name like the root file of something. So this is a very common file name you'll see in projects. Okay, so you're gonna see all this stuff, right? It's gonna be kind of overwhelming. Let me make the text a little bigger too. Where's my chat box? Okay, sorry, the chat's gonna have to like sit right here or something. Oh, I'll just put it here. Okay, then I'll put it on my Explorer. All right, hopefully y'all are, let me know if you need me to slow down as well. Once again, you can watch the recording if you do wanna go through all this again, but I just wanna make sure I'm not leaving anyone behind. How do I open the index.html file? Well, if you have the project open in the editor, you should just be able to click it, and it should open the file on the left. Let me know if that's not quite working for you, and maybe we can debug in the Q&A. But if you do have the folder open, you should just be able to click this index.html file, and it will open the file. Okay. So once again, we see a lot of code here, right? Let's first go through like the overall like structure of what is this we're looking at. So this is what an HTML file looks like, right? This is kind of similar to when we were doing that like little demo in New York Times, right? It kind of looked like, I mean, it didn't look exactly like this, but you see the same like caret symbols, right? The greater than, less than. You see that here, so that's how we know it's HTML. I'm gonna go ahead, I don't know if this is enabled by default in new editors, but if you hover on like in between the line numbers here in the code, you can see these little carets, or these down facing arrows. And if you click them, it allows you to like compress your code basically. So if I click on the HTML, like little caret right here next to the word HTML, it's going to basically like compress my code. into just the HTML tag. So do let me know if that's not quite working for you, but this is an easy way for you to basically see the structure because, I mean, if we scroll through this file, right, you can see there's like 431 lines. That's a lot of lines of code, you know. It's gonna be a lot to scroll through. So getting used to like clicking those carets is an easy way for you to kind of see more of the code a little bit faster. Okay, but I think what I want us to zoom in on, first, let's talk about this section. So this is what we call the head of a page. Basically what you need to know about the head is that the head is just what we would call metadata of a page. All the code that's in here, it doesn't necessarily correlate to anything that's on the web page, but it's more of like, well, I guess an easy way to demonstrate is first we need to also get this index to HTML loaded into our browser, right? We've loaded this folder in our editor, but as you can see on my browser here, I still have just the the download page. So how do we open this index to HTML in the browser? Well, one way to do it is you can right-click the index to HTML file here, and there should be like if you're on Windows, it might be something else, but on Mac, it's like Reveal in Finder. Right, this is basically going to open the index.html file in your Finder window. Let me see if I can figure out how to screen share my Finder. Sorry, give me one quick second. I'm gonna have to switch my screen sharing over to the Finder window. Finder. Where's Finder? Okay, it's not letting me easily share my Finder window, but basically you want to open your computer's file explorer, and it'll allow you to kind of see the index.html page there. So there's many ways to open it in your browser. The easiest way is to basically grab that file wherever it is. It could be in your downloads folder, it could be in your file explorer, etc. You basically want to drag that into your browser. So I'm just going to drag the file into my browser. So I'm going to drag it here on the left. Okay, so now that I've dragged it in, you can see that I've loaded the page in my browser. And we know this because if I go to my URL bar, I'm not using Chrome, so most of y'all's most of y'all's will look very different. But basically, if I look at the URL bar here, you'll see something that looks like this. It starts with, instead of starting with HTTP or HTTPS like most websites do, it starts with this word file, right? File : ///. This is basically saying that this browser is now loading a file that's on our local computer, right? It's loading a file. It's loading our index.html file that happens to be in my downloads folder. Once again, if you're not on Mac, these words might look completely different, but generally you will see something that starts with file and ends with index.html. Yes, that's a good call about using Chrome. Honestly, yeah, I should probably switch to Chrome. I can do that really quick. Good call. All right, let me go ahead and switch to Chrome. Yeah, all right, I'm gonna close this out. I'm gonna switch over to Chrome. That's a good suggestion. I'm gonna do the same thing in Chrome. Give me one quick second. Yeah, okay. All right, switching over to Chrome now. Chrome. Wait, is Streamlabs not, darn. I might not be able to do it on this stream because I guess Streamlabs doesn't recognize Windows after Streamlabs is initiated. So even though I've opened up Chrome, it's not like letting me share it. Really sorry about that. But next time, yeah, that's a good call. I will start using Chrome as the browser here instead of Arc because I know it looks funky. But generally, yeah, you just want to check the URL bar and see that it starts with the word file and ends with index.html. Yeah, sorry, I'm still figuring out Streamlabs too. I need to figure out the mouse stuff, figure out the browser stuff. So thank you for bearing with me here. But just making sure that not everyone has to be at the stage, but just want to make sure that we feel decently okay about the idea of we've loaded this file in our browser. And you can do this in many ways, right? You can click the file and drag it into the browser itself. You can right click it and do open with Chrome or another browser. There are many ways to do it, but dragging and drop is just what I found simplest. Cool. So now that we've loaded the website, so we've loaded this index.html in our browser. I'm going to do a really quick thing here in the head tag, right? So looking at this head tag right here, let's first change the title of the page. So the title, it's not something that we see in the actual like body of the web page here, but it's more something we'll see in the tab name. So here, as you can see here, once again, I'm not using Chrome, so apologies there, but this is basically the tag name, right? You can see that this says Fractal by HTML5 up. You know, y'all will say like whatever template you downloaded by HTML5 up, but something like this. What I want you to notice is that this text, Fractal by HTML5 up, is the same as what is in this title, right? Fractal by HTML5 up. So if I change this, let's say I want to make this like my personal website, I can just say like Zach's website. I'm going to save that. Oops. I have some like funky like settings going on. I need to like reset my VS Code because I have a lot of like plugins and stuff. So forget, you know, if y'all's editor is behaving differently, it's probably because I have like a bunch of weird settings going on. So next time we'll turn those off. But what I want you to notice now is, so I've just made that change. Every change you make here, you have to save. After you save the file, you have to refresh the page. We won't have to do this forever, right? Later when we get into JavaScript, there are fancy tools that let us save the file and then the browser will automatically refresh. But because we're just using regular HTML, this is what we have to do. So we have to, so I just saved the file. So you know, you can do Command S if you're on a Mac, Control S if you're on Windows, as an easy way. But once you've saved the file, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the browser here. So I click back in the browser. I'm going to refresh the page. So I'm going to just do Command R since I'm on Mac. And now that I've refreshed, you can go see that my tab title here, you see that? It doesn't say HTML, so it doesn't say Fractal by HTML5 up anymore. It says Zach's website, right? So this like loop right here, this example, this is basically the workflow that y'all are going to be working through, right? We're just making a change in the editor. So we made a change in the editor on the right. We saved it. We go back into our browser. We refresh, and then we observe the change, right? So this loop is basically the core of development process. So hopefully we all are like somewhat clear on that. But yeah, once again, if you do have any problems with this, do let me know, because this is kind of one of the, I would say this is like the main thing we want to get out of today's session. Just understanding that this work loop, I guess. So that's it for the head. There's a lot more, obviously, that's going on here. Don't want to complicate things too much. I really just want y'all to basically update your title, so change the title. Now, before we kind of go into the next phase, let's also change something on the page itself, right? So as you can see, it says the word Fractal, just a simple single page responsive template brought to you by HTML5 up. In this example, let's just make this our own personal site, right? Let's say we want to make this our portfolio page or whatever. Basically, we want to find in our code the same text that matches what is on our website. So here we can see, it says Fractal, just a simple single page responsive template. And here in my code, I'm gonna shrink this Explorer a bit, make it a little easier to see. But here you can see, here we have Fractal, just a simple single page responsive template. This might be hard to read at first. An easy way to do it is also just to like copy some of this text, right? Copy this text. So I'm just gonna copy it. So Command C. I can go back into my editor and do Command F, find, right? So I can just paste what I've copied. And yeah, so this will highlight the same section of the page that matches the text. This is not gonna work if we have this text in multiple places, but as a way of starting out, this is just an easy way to quickly find the matching code to what we see on the web page. Okay, cool. So this is the last part of the demo today. Like a lot of the homework is going to be kind of you going through and kind of changing things of your own. But let's say we just want to change this text initially. So I'm going to change this to say like Zach's website. So I'm going to delete that fractal text, Zach's website. I'm going to save it. Once again, we have to get used to the fact that we have to save and then go back to the browser and then refresh, right? Because once I've saved, you can see it hasn't changed yet, right? But if I refresh, you can see that now the text is updated. Cool. So let's change this part as well. Just a simple single page template brought to you by. Okay, so let's also talk about this weird thing before we leave. This A tag, as we'll call it. A tag is basically what you need to know about this is that this is a link, right? And we know it's a link because in the website you can see that there's like the underline, right? That's how in when we hover it. Well, once again, you can't see my mouse, but when I hover it, you can see that there's like the click pointer, right? The pointer hand. So that's how we know it's a link. So maybe let's say I wanted this to link to my Twitter instead. I just want to say like, maybe I'll just say like, welcome to my website, here's my Twitter. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this text. And oh, one other thing to note here, this BR tag, this is a line break. So if we look at this website, it just says just a simple single page responsive. They have a line break here after the word responsive, and that's why it breaks and it starts on a new line. So that's what this BR tag is here. Once again, same as I said in the beginning, there's a lot going on here. We want to avoid basically getting overwhelmed by all the stuff we don't know. We just want to focus on little bits like changing text. Naturally, we'll learn about, you'll be able to understand like what all of this stuff is just by, I guess, osmosis. But once again, I just want us to focus on like changing text, changing links, right? Simple things like that. Don't worry about all this other stuff because it is a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this text. So I'm gonna go ahead and change it and say like, welcome to my website. Here is my Twitter. Okay, so we need to change, oops, I jumped away. There we go. So I'm back. So I want to change the Twitter, this link to my Twitter, right? So right now the link is pointing to this website, the HTML5 up website. So href is on a link. This is like the same thing as saying this link points to this website, right? And what's inside this A tag is the actual text of the link, right? Because this text here on the left says HTML5 up. But when I click on it, it's going to take me to whatever the href says. So to change this to my Twitter, I'm just going to go ahead and change this href. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to change it to my Twitter, which is https twitter.com/Wenquei. And then I don't want it to say HTML5 up on the page. I wanted to say my Twitter. So I'm just going to replace this word with my Twitter. Okay, cool. So once again, save this. Notice how nothing on the website has changed. That's because we have to refresh it, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and refresh it. And yeah, we can see that now this is a little bit more customized to my liking, right? It says, welcome to my website. Here is my Twitter. Let's say I think this is a little long, right? Let's say I don't want, I want there to be a line break in between the words like website and here. So all I can do here is just maybe put a BR tag, right? So in between website and here, so I'm back in the code editor on the right, I'm gonna go ahead and type caret, just gotta be a whatever word for this, the greater than symbol, BR / less than symbol, n caret, I guess. So this little snippet right here, this is a line break. So this will create a line break in this one big line. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Once again, no change. That's because we have to refresh. So I'm gonna refresh. And there, now we have our line break. Okay, cool. So this is like the basics of HTML, CSS development, right? We make a change, we save it, we refresh, and then we observe the change. So a lot of what your homework's gonna be is basically customizing this. We only did a little bit, right? We changed the link, we changed the header text here. For your homework, it's gonna be kind of more than that. You don't have to change everything on the site. I know it's a lot, but just start to kind of play around with messing around with, changing text, changing links, changing images. And then that will give you a lot better idea of kind of what's going on here with HTML. Once again, we're mainly focusing on HTML, right? We didn't talk too much about CSS. CSS is a little harder, but I just mainly want to draw your attention to like editing HTML. Okay, so we are over time by 50 minutes. I didn't quite get to deployment, but I guess if anybody does want to run through it, I'm going to move a little faster here, so don't feel like you have to follow along. But let's say, let's fast forward and pretend that I've edited this whole website to my liking. If I were to send this link to someone, if I were to grab this link in the menu bar and send it to someone, it's not going to work, right? Because this is a file on my local computer. I can't just send it to someone and they click it and they're going to see the same website, right? Because the file only exists on my computer. So we have to basically deploy this website or publish it to the web. And there are many, many ways you can do this. But like we said in the beginning, GitHub provides a really easy, free way to do it. So, your homework, there's another part of your homework of setting up GitHub account. You don't have to have that right now. But once you do have a GitHub account, I'm going to show you really quick how to put this website on the internet really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and go to github.com. So yeah, pretend we finished our project, right? I'm going to go ahead and actually switch to make it a little bit bigger. How's that? Oh, too big. All right, give me one quick second. All right, cool. So this is GitHub. Yours is gonna look very different. I have all my repositories and projects here, so don't worry about all that. What you all you need to do is to focus on it is to click this plus button on the top right. Yeah, so I clicked it and you can see that there's this drop down. And you basically want to click on new repository. Remember that repository is a weird word. All you need to know is basically what we would call like a folder or project. I know it's confusing because they also have like project here, but trust me, don't worry about that. Just, what we're focusing on are repositories. So click new repository. And this is going to basically create a new project or a new folder on your GitHub account. So once again, there's a lot going on here. We don't need to focus on it. We only need to focus on a couple of fields. One, we want to focus on the repository name. So in this case, you can just call it, I don't know, my personal website, or you can call it like, I think the template I downloaded was called Fractal. Let's just call it Fractal. Fractal, whatever, doesn't really matter. Don't need to write a description. That's totally optional. You should set it to be public. We can't deploy it if we set it to private, or sorry, that's not true. We can't deploy it on GitHub pages if we set it to private. So set it to public, just leave it as is. And this is kind of a weird step, but this has made things so much easier. Just check this box where it says add a README file. This is just going to create your folder on GitHub with a blank file called README. You don't need to do anything with this file, but if you don't check this, you have to use like a Git client to actually upload the project. I don't know why that is, and I don't really have an easier way of explaining that, but just trust me in the sense of like clicking this will make your life a lot easier for this first project, at least when you're trying to put this website live. So check that. You don't need to touch any of this. We'll talk more about this stuff later as we get more into Git. But yeah, so to recap, repository name, changes to whatever you want, but just know that whatever domain it's published on will match the name. So, you want something that's short and easily readable. Set this to public, make sure it's on public. It should be on public by default, but just, make sure it's not private. And finally, check this box. Cool. So those are only the three things we need to do. I'm going to go ahead and click create repository. All right, creating a repository. And then you should see something like this, right? This is like the GitHub page for repository. And as you can see, yeah, we have a blank file. We only have one file in our project here that says README. And it doesn't say anything but the title of our project. Yeah, totally cool. It doesn't matter. So now where we want to go is we want to upload our files onto GitHub. Later on, we won't be doing it this way because we'll be using, the terminal or a GitHub desktop or just some other like GitHub client. But because we haven't gotten to that stuff yet, we're just going to do it the easy way, which is basically dragging and dropping the files. So I want you to go ahead and click on Add File. And what you're going to do is click Upload Files. So click that, and you should see something like this. Okay, so this is the part where it gets kind of weird, but there's two ways you can do it. You can click Choose Your Files, or you can just drag and drop your files into the project. One thing to note is you do not want to drag the folder. This is very key. Do not drag the folder into here. You want to open up the folder, select all the files, and then drag the files into here. It sounds similar, but it's very different because if you do drag the folder into here, it's going to basically create like let's say your folder is called Fractal HTML5 up. It's going to put the whole folder in your repository. But really what we want to do is take all the files in the folder and put them in the repository. So it sounds the same, but it's actually a very key difference. So make sure you drag and drop the files themselves and not the folder. So we can click Choose Your Files. I don't think you can see my actual like window. Let me see how I can. Yeah, it's got to be an easier way for me to share this stuff. But basically, I can't share this super well. I'm trying to think an easier way for me to do this. Okay, you know what? Let's see. I'm going to choose my files, and basically I'm going to navigate to where I downloaded my folder. I'm going to highlight all the files in it, and make sure you grab if you do have an assets or images folder in yours, make sure you have those as well. So you're going to highlight all the files. I'm going to drag them in here. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can't see my mouse, but I've opened the folder, selected all the files as well as the assets and image folders. I have those all selected, and I'm dropping them into here. And then you should start to see this thing start uploading, right? It's uploading all of our fonts, it's uploading all of our images, and uploading our index.html file. This is definitely one of the most confusing parts of the demo. So once again, this will all be in the recording, so feel free to like kind of walk through it again. I have to apologize for the lack of ability to share like my mouse finder, because all of that would have definitely come in handy. So do let me know if you are having issues with this part, because this is something that honestly I have gotten caught up on a lot. But basically, as you can see, we've dragged and dropped our whole Fractal folder or HTML5 up project folder into GitHub. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on. We didn't write on any of this, right? This is all stuff that came with the template. And mainly what we want to make sure is that the index.html file is here, right? So if you see this in just the index.html file and none of the images, that's fine. Your website's going to work, but it's not going to have any images and assets. So, ideally you should have the whole folder, all the components of the folder in it. Okay, cool. So hopefully we're all good there. You basically should see like, big list of files here. And then we're going to just click Commit Changes. This is basically going to finish the upload of all of these files into our repo. So I'm going to click this. It should take like 30 seconds to a minute to complete, just depending on your internet connection. But it shouldn't take too long. Right, images are a lot bigger than just text files, so that's probably why it's taking a little longer, right? Because of the images. But when all is said and done, you should have something that looks like this, right? And by this, I mean, we see that we see our index.html file, right? We have our images folder, we have our assets folder, right? As long as it looks like this, we're in pretty good shape. Okay, cool. Hopefully we're all good there. We're almost done with this. So basically what we've just done is that we've put our folder, our project folder, onto GitHub. We've put it onto the cloud. So this is great because let's say my computer gets wiped for some reason, like let's say like it crashes and I just happen to lose all my files. I can still get my project back, right? All the hard work I did in this project, even though I didn't do that much on it, I can just go to GitHub and pull it down. So I see a question coming, why didn't you use the terminal to push go to GitHub? Definitely the terminal is the way I recommend doing it, but just for simplicity, we haven't gotten to Git yet. There's just a lot more setup and complexity that comes with setting that all up, but we will definitely get to doing it the quote unquote the Git way, right? Because the way I demonstrated here is a very simplified way of sorry, putting the code on the web. And this the drag and drop method is just something that, doesn't require any Git setup. It doesn't require knowledge of Git. It's fairly straightforward. But yes, the terminal is the way we're going to be doing it later once we get into the more advanced session. So good question there. Okay, cool. So hopefully we're all, once again, I moved a little faster here. So, you don't have to necessarily be at this point, but if you are, that's awesome. Like that's really great. And now we're going to put our website live on the internet. So once I put this live, anybody can use my link and you'll be able to see that website we just put together. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go here to settings. If your screen's a little bit smaller, you might see like 3 dots and then you have to click it and then click settings. But basically what you want to do is go to this little bar here, just like top bar, click settings, click that. And then you should see all these settings. And where I want us to narrow in on is this section right here called pages, right? So GitHub pages is what we're using to put our website on the internet. So I'm gonna click pages. Okay, so when we click on pages, we should see something like this. All you need to do is, I believe you just click, so you wanna select a source, or sorry, not a source. So you wanna select a branch. So go to branch here, click this drop down that says starts with none, and click the main branch. Y'all's branch might be something different, but I think by default it should be main if you follow all the same steps that we went through. So click main. Yeah, root is fine. That's good. And just click save. So yeah, so click this, drop down, click main. Once it's set to main, then click save. Okay, so now it says GitHub pages sources saved. So great. So now we've published our website basically. To actually find a link of our website, it's going to be a little bit, we gotta hop around a little bit more. But this is the same menu where, let's say I want to change this domain to my own. Let's say I own fractal.com, which I don't, but let's say I do. I can follow the steps here if I click learn more to connect it to my own domain, right? For free, which is great, right? Because Squarespace, Webflow, like Wix, like all those services, they charge you for custom domains. But here I'm showing you, hey, if you code your own HTML, CSS website, you can basically have your custom domain connected to it for free, right? Which is great. But we're not talking about custom domains. I don't have that domain or any domains I can afford to give away right now. What we're going to do now is look at our website live. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Actions. I think it's where it is. Yeah, Actions tab. So you don't need to be, Actions is kind of an advanced place, but the Actions is what GitHub pages use to actually deploy our website. You should see something like this where it says like one workflow run. You should see this green check. You should see something that says like pages build and deployment. This is basically saying that GitHub has successfully deployed our website onto the internet. So if you click this, you'll see all this crazy stuff. But what I really want us to narrow in on is you should see a link here that comes off this deploy section here. And this is the link of our website. So I click this. So if you do want to visit, I'll drop it into the chat. Oopsies. Copy this link. Copy link address. Drop it in the chat. Twitch. And just a moment of truth. I think this is going to work. But if I click this link now, boom, we have our website, right? It looks a little different because I changed my screen size to be bigger. But, this is the same stuff we did, right? This is like, here's my Twitter. I changed the heading of the website. If you look at the tab name, it says Zach's website. So anybody can visit this link, right? We just put our website on the internet for free in relatively short time. So this is definitely, this is like a bonus part of the homework. You don't have to deploy your website. Definitely what I mainly want us to get out of today is just getting our tooling set up and just playing around with the HTML template. But if you do want to take it the extra mile and upload it to the website, well, you can just follow all those like the GitHub steps, and yeah, you should end up with your own website, which is pretty nice. So I think that's basically it for the demo. Let's go ahead and talk about, let's do a quick review because we went through a lot there, right? So this is something I did skip, but in the future, just because we're going to be building a lot of projects, I know that I basically opened my project from the downloads folder. The downloads folder is not the best place, honestly, for me to hold projects, right? Because I don't know about y'all, but I have a lot of downloads, and it's easy to lose your projects in there. I would create like a project on your like documents folder or your home folder or whatever. It's just some easy place where you can access it. And basically have that folder be the home for all of your coding projects. So you can call it coding, you can call it projects, you can call it bootcamp, it doesn't matter, right? Mine is just called projects. That's just what I've always used. And then next we downloaded a template from HTML5 up. We loaded that folder after we unzipped it. We loaded the folder into our code editor. And then we also loaded the index.html file into the browser. Once again, if you have a larger screen, it does help to put them side by side, but that's totally optional. That's just like a personal preference thing. It's just faster. In the code editor, I want y'all to change up the following, just the title, some text. Optionally, if you want to change some images, you can do that too. Change up some links. You might have to do some Googling here, right? Because I know I didn't cover all of this, but this is where the Googling will come into play. And optional, as a bonus, you can publish the site to GitHub pages, right? So you have to have a GitHub account to do this. So you create a new repo, make sure it's public, make sure it has a README, right? Check that little box that says, like, do you want to README? Drag and drop the folder. Oh, I need to type. I'm gonna change this text because this is not actually true. You don't want to actually drag and drop the folder. You want to drag and drop the project's contents. I'm gonna actually change that really quick. The drag and drop the contents of the project folder. There we go. That's a little bit more accurate. You want to drag and drop the contents of the project folder into the repo or the repository, and this will upload the files to GitHub. And then go to the settings, click pages, and then you should be able to follow the instructions there to actually have it live. Okay, so that was a lot. Hopefully that wasn't like too overwhelming. Once again, I don't want to like say things over and like too many times, but this is really something I want us to get taken away. You do not have to be an expert in HTML, CSS by today, right? If it does feel overwhelming, if it does feel like a lot, that's totally normal. We're naturally going to be understanding HTML and CSS a lot better as we progress. Today was just a basic demonstration of kind of how they all come together, and also the process of taking a website from code to real website, I guess. Okay, so there's a lot more to HTML, CSS. Once again, we only need to know the basics. If you do want to go the extra mile, maybe you have like more time than other learners, and you want to gain that deeper understanding, highly recommend these two resources. One is Shay Howe has this like HTML, CSS lesson course. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat. And then, first I'll click it. But it basically looks something like this. It's just like a really quick, free like set of lessons that will walk you through all the more advanced stuff that we didn't have time to cover today. Oops. And then the other one I highly recommend is Code Academy's CSS course. They also have an HTML course, which I don't think is, I think you can get a lot of that information just from reading it. You don't have to go through the whole HTML course, but their CSS course is quite good as well. Let me drop that link before I forget. I'm gonna drop these links. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna drop that link here. All right, cool. I just dropped those links in the chat. Once again, they're in the slides as well. So even if you do miss the chat, feel free to just go to the slides and click them. Okay, so that was a lot. We do have some homework here. This is more homework than the first session, but this is kind of, we're starting to get into the flow of things. The first thing I want us to do is to make sure you have your tooling set up, right? So make sure you already have a good browser for development. So if you're already using Chrome or Firefox, that's fine. Brave and Arc, those are fine too. But just Safari, Internet Explorer users, it'll just be easier if you find yourself using Chrome or Firefox. So that's one thing to note. Make sure you have a code editor. If you don't have one on hand, I recommend VSCode, which you can go through the slides and find the link for that. This is kind of optional, but practice using dev tools to edit a website, just like we did the New York Times. Just all you need to really do is just practice like the opening up the dev tools. Just make sure you're comfortable opening that up. Practice changing some text, maybe swap out an image. It might not work, right? Like as we saw today, we tried to change some images, tried to change some color. This is not going to work on all websites, but mainly I just want you to change some text. That's kind of the main thing. Also, if you want, delete some elements as well. Practice doing that. We don't have a homework channel right now. I'm actually going to change this. I thought about it more, and it's probably best for the homework to be submitted somewhere else. So I'm actually going to delete this part. But if you do decide to take this exercise on, go ahead and take a screenshot. You don't have to share it. Gonna go ahead and change that after this session. And the final thing I want you to do for tooling is make sure you have a GitHub account, right? Today we've skimmed over like all of Git. Like we didn't really talk about Git. We've only talked about like GitHub pages, but GitHub is going to be the home of all of your projects. As someone said in the chat earlier, it's also like your portfolio, right? When people are hiring developers, a lot of companies will look at your GitHub and just see, what projects do you have on your GitHub? Do you have any have you contributed to other projects, right? Have you contributed to open source? Stuff like that. And building that portfolio early on is always going to be helpful, right? Okay, so that's the tooling. This should all take about less than an hour to do. Do let me know if you do get kind of stuck with things. But also remember that like Google, I want us to get into the habit of Googling things and just because that is a skill, right? When we first start out, we're not great at Googling things and debugging. So it's something we have to, like a muscle we have to build. And then the main thing I want you to do is, if you haven't done it already, go through that same exercise that we did today, which is download that template, practice loading into your editor, load the index.html to your browser, and then customize it to your liking, right? I'll let you decide like how ham you want to go with the customization. But really, I want you to make sure you change the title of the webpage, like we did in the demo. Change some text. Maybe change at least one image. Change a link here and there. You don't have to go crazy, right? But just like practice messing around with it, and that will give you a pretty good feel of kind of what HTML is doing here. If you want to take the extra mile, do some bonus stuff. You can maybe like try to swap the font, right? Use a different font. Maybe Googling that. You'll have to Google that and like figure that part out. If you want to change the colors, maybe you don't like the colors that came with the template, I encourage you to kind of experiment that as well. And the final bonus part is if you want to basically make it a real website that you can share with your friends and family or the community here, you can publish it on GitHub pages using those same steps that we went through today. Okay, that was a lot. Definitely compared to the first session, it was a lot more. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming. Once again, if you do ~ feedback in the chat, you'll be able to see the feedback form. This is the first session that we're doing like this, so I definitely want to hear how y'all felt about the pacing and kind of the overall like feel of things. So feel free to leave some feedback in that form. But yeah, I know we're way over time. But if anybody's still here and we want to stick around a little longer for Q&A, maybe we'll do a shorter Q&A because I don't want to take up any more of people's time. Let's do like 10-13 minutes dedicated to Q&A. But yeah, that's basically the end of the session. I'm gonna go through chat now and just see whatever I missed. Cool. So I'm gonna open up Twitch. Oops. 1 second. Okay, going through chat now. So I'm going to start from the bottom just because it's easiest for me to do that. Are you going to talk about creative coding? Yeah, I do want to talk about creative coding. I guess the way I'll introduce creative coding is I would like the projects that we work on here to be a little bit more different than what a lot of bootcamp grads and computer science students would have, right? Because one of the big things is we are trying to we want to diversify and make our portfolio really interesting, and having creative coding projects is a good part of that. That's not going to come so much in these first couple sessions when we're just talking about HTML, CSS, but when we get into JavaScript, we will probably talk a lot more about how to build 3D websites, animations, using AI in your projects, right? I mean, that's not necessarily creative coding, but it's more. We're going to use more creative technologies, I guess, as a way for us to have fun projects, keep it interesting, but also make our portfolio kind of stand out. So we are going to talk a little bit about that, but that's kind of a little bit further down the road. I'm going to go through this one. Does the homework build on each other to create a bigger project? Not right now, but when we get into JavaScript and we get into front end and back end, it is going to build on each other, right? We're going to build the front end, like a more complex front end for our project, and then we're going to build a larger back end that will add on to it. So that is going to come later. So let's see. I think I answered the terminal one. We are going to get to Git later.
What are your thoughts on TypeScript?
What are our thoughts on TypeScript? I think if your goal is to get a job, like if your goal is to land a front end or back end developer role, especially these days at like a tier 1, tier 2 company, I think TypeScript is it's not hard, it's not required, but learning TypeScript will make you a better developer. And it's something that a lot of major companies are asking for these days. We do have a module that's dedicated to TypeScript, but I've always thought of it as like, it's kind of scares people off if we introduce TypeScript too early. So we will get to TypeScript especially when we talk about backend, where like the benefits of TypeScript are a little bit more obvious. Like when we're just talking about front end, TypeScript is like not as useful, and it kind of is more scary than useful. And I think for teaching, it's like I want to kind of balance the scariness and the usefulness. And TypeScript just honestly is the usefulness just comes out a lot more when we're like doing backend and doing like full stack. So hopefully that makes sense. What programming languages can you use in VS Code? I think you can use every single programming language. It's not just for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I use Visual Studio Code for like data science, so like writing Python, writing R. You can write SQL. Yeah, you can write literally every single programming language, even Swift, Rust, Go, right? All the languages that are popular right now. You can write all of them in Visual Studio Code. So it's definitely not just for web development, but it is the editor I recommend for web developers. So it's nice. All right, can I keep scrolling up? I see that Jackie got a lot of the questions, so thank you, Jackie.
Why did you quit your job and not do it in parallel?
Why did I quit my job and not do this in parallel? Yeah, I mean, Jackie kind of addressed this a little bit, but the startup I was working on is a high growth startup, and in general, like startups are great. I like working at startups. I like the ownership. I feel like you learn faster generally at startups, but you're just very busy, and it's very hard to like balance to, definitely the bootcamp, like working through this bootcamp isn't like a full-time thing for me, but I do dedicate a good amount of time to like, editing the videos afterwards, preparing the slides, like designing the notes, like setting up all the, bots and all that. So it was just a lot for me to kind of, I knew I couldn't run the bootcamp while I had my full-time job. And on my own, I am working on my own startup that's related to this bootcamp program. So yeah, it was just kind of too much for me to do at the same time. So I just had to leave in order to do it full time. But in general, like I encourage people to have like side projects. Like I do a lot of side projects when I was working full time, and that is a good way to kind of get more experience, push yourself a little harder. But if you're working for a high growth startup, it can sometimes be difficult. Like you can get burnt out pretty quick, which I've definitely gotten burnt out a lot in the past. Okay.
What's going to be your philosophy for people that need help on the homeworks?
Philosophy on people. Okay, so who asked, what's my philosophy on people who need help on the homework? That's a great question. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. I want to create, so we have a channel, we have a channel in Discord that is called Web Dev Questions, which is kind of like a forum style channel. It's a little different from like the other Discord channels. That is kind of where I want people to ask like homework related questions. So for now, just drop those in there. Of course, you could also like private message me on Discord, but I feel like it would help the class more, like more people in the class, if it was in that channel. So for now, just direct all of the questions you have in that web dev channel, and we'll be figuring this out as we go. We'll probably have to have a different system, but for now, that is the place where we should put all those questions. So good question. Yeah, thanks for asking that. Okay, someone asked about copyright. So uploading our projects and GitHub and sketches to GitHub, do we have to be beware of copyright issues on files, typefaces, images, etc.? That's a really good question. I would say at least for the context of this course, you don't really have to worry about that right now. Obviously, don't use like pirated typefaces and images and all that. But just know that it can be used against you. It's basically like if you're building a project that's like really small and it's just you, it's the likelihood of you getting a copyright claim or like you getting sued is low. But if your project gets very big, that likelihood of someone coming down on you for copyright goes up. So it's like, I don't want to say you shouldn't consider it, but for the purpose of like learning and just like getting started, it's not really something that I would always keep in the back of your mind.
Also, we use a lot of free resources.
Yeah. Also everything we're using is pretty much open source and it has like licensing around it. Like it's free to use. So we shouldn't have many issues with copywriting, but we'll see. Maybe the FBI will knock on my doorstep or something. Okay, let me see. Will we learn how to write clean code? Yes, learning how to write clean code I think is really important. As in, like, it's hard to get hired if you don't write clean code, right? It's just kind of a something that you naturally will pick up as you write more of it. Like in the beginning, we're not talking too much about clean code just because, we're just trying to focus on getting things to work, right? We're just focusing on the basics. As we go on, we will introduce more tools that will help us write cleaner code. And naturally, like you'll understand like what the difference between like clean code and not clean code is. So it's something that we will like maybe not talk about directly all the time in all sessions, but throughout our projects, we will try to set the precedent of, if you're going to write code, you should try to make it clean, right? Just building that habit early on. Same with Googling. It's just something that in the beginning, it's going to be tough, but as we get deeper and deeper, naturally you'll have a kind of innate understanding of like what is clean code, what is not clean code. Okay, so someone asked, will we go into data structures and algorithms? Yes, so this is something that is going to be covered a lot more in the JavaScript section. And a lot more when we get into the final weeks of the bootcamp, which basically centers around career prep, right? Because data structures and algorithms. So I guess this question is related to a larger question that I think I get a lot, which is, what is the difference between computer science and software engineering, right? Because I consider data structures and algorithms part of computer science, but computer science is different from software engineering. I don't know how many people here are like musicians or artists, but a quick analogy I can give is that computer science is to music theory as software engineering is to like playing piano, for example. Like computer science is the theory that is used in disciplines like software engineering, but it's different, right? Computer science it focuses around theory. Software engineering is more like the practicing of it. So data structures and algorithms are in computer science. And this is not a computer science course. This is a software engineering course, right? That centers on web development. But the only reason why we will talk about data structures and algorithms is because in order to get a job, right, in order to pass a technical interview, it's often a requirement that you need to know how to solve LeetCode problems or data structure problems, right? So it's like, it's not directly relevant to software engineering, but just like how knowing music theory helps you become a better musician, it's just you need to know just enough theory to pass the interview or like become a better developer. So the short answer is yes, we will go into it, even though that's not like a main focus of the course because that's like more computer science. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna see if there are any more questions. How do I zip the file? Okay, I think. Okay, cool. This looks.
Books you recommend? We talked about that last time.
What books you recommend? Ooh, so yeah, I'll give the same answer that I gave on Tuesday for a similar question, which is I think books are great. I like books, but software engineering and specifically web development is an unusual field. Oh, sorry, my light is dark, so you can't see my face, but it's fine. Oh, thank you. Web development is such a fast-moving industry that most of the books you read for web development or that are suggested are outdated. So this is fine. I think if you're reading books about the fundamentals like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but honestly, even those three, like they've changed so much over the years, and like the patterns and like what is considered good and all that has changed, that I can't really say that I would recommend like physical books just because, those books are always going to lag behind what is like recommended in web development today. So there's like there's one of the resources that I linked, the Shay How HTML CSS. That's kind of like a book, but it's like an ebook, right? It's not a printed book, but it's more of like a series of articles. Like I recommend those, right? Those are a lot more updated and are more kind of in line with the times. But for physical books, I don't think I'll be recommending any physical books for web development until we get into career prep. Because there are a lot of books that are great for getting better at interviews, but a lot of the books for like, getting better at web development, they do kind of get outdated. But I'm sure there are good books out there. I just think as a whole, a lot of the resources that are going to be helpful for like web development are going to be found online and not in physical book form. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. So I think I covered all of the questions. Do let me know if I missed any. Cool. I think that's all the questions. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining. So as always, you can find the recording on Twitch. I'm gonna upload a better res version, hopefully on YouTube if the Twitch recording goes away. The homework you can find in the slides or in Notion. So you can just do exclamation Notion. I'll do that now in the chat. So this is gonna give you that command is gonna give you the link to the Notion, which you should be able to see the homework and all that. Trying to think what else. Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, I know this session is a lot more fast paced than the first one, but hopefully we didn't leave anybody behind. And as always, in the Discord, we're always here. Make use of that, the general chat, or just ask us questions in the web dev questions forum. And yeah, that should be it. Cool, y'all. Thanks for joining. All right, bye-bye. Oh, sorry, one last thing. We're going to have office hours tomorrow at 12, if you do want to join, 12 p.m. EST. So that just a reminder for the Discord. But if you do have any more questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to come tomorrow and we can chat then. All right, goodbye. Hey, sorry, we just ended today's lesson, so I will be signing off soon, but the recording for today is going to be on Twitch. So for those that are joining late, and no worries, you can catch up on that recording. But yeah, we're going to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. EST. So yeah, apologies to anyone who's joining in late, but we just concluded our session for today. So we're going to be ending the stream now. We might do a raid. I don't know. Let me see who's on. All right. Yeah, catch y'all later. Probably no raid today. We'll do one next time. All right. Cool, y'all. See you guys later.